and Moorhead had a vacancy, and a personal friend that was a assistant football coach, but a head track coach, he was our athletic director later on. He invited me to stop in and visit with some of the school board guys to see if, you know, if they would be interested or if I would be interested. And so I became a sophomore coach for 2 years.
Okay.
And at that point, the head coach retired.
Okay.
And I moved up then to the coach. During my early years, we had to practice at the junior high outside the building.
Okay.
Very limited size-wise. So it was always a problem until Jake Christensen permitted us to use part of his property over for our practice. Yeah, at Concordia. And it's about a mile. The kids, when they got out of school, they got the gear on, they had to run a mile to go to practice. And that's not so bad. Coming home, they had to run that same mile back home. So it took a lot of time away from us. I built my offense on running off tackle,
okay,
pulling a guard.
Sure.
And I always had speed. I never put a kid on a scale to weigh him to see how heavy he is.
Okay.
And I never measured any of them.
Yeah.
I was more concerned about building up the heart. And you can't measure that.
What advice would you give young football players?
Well, if you're going to play football, prepare yourself for it early. You know, you never know what growth is going to be like. You could be a real small kid and all of a sudden you're a tall kid, whether it's basketball, track, football, whatever. But if you have a love for the game, you got to get involved totally. And I don't care about the assistant coaches here, there, or around across the, I just care about what they're like in Moorhead, because I'm a Spud and I want to see them win. But young Feeney here, he's kept up. He's not concerned about making a future for himself. All he cares about, he's a lot like, I'm a lot like him, or he's a lot like me. He wants to win. He's a winner.
My fondest memories of Spud football and playing for Coach Goda came my junior and senior years, the fall of 1971 and 72. During the 71 season, the Spuds went unbeaten and went on to be named the mythical state champions by the sports writers across the state of Minnesota. The following season, in 1972, the Spuds again would go unbeaten during the regular season and advance to the first ever football playoffs in Minnesota. In the first round, Moorhead defeated Hastings to advance to the championship game to be played the following week at the Old Met Stadium. The Spuds were defeated by Minneapolis-Washburn on a cold mid-November Friday night, but prior to that loss, Coach Goda's teams had won 27 in a row. Quite a run by the Spuds, Coach Goda and his staff.
And you know, one of the main things you remember about Mr. Goda is he's probably the best motivator anyone ever saw. No matter if you're up or down, you were ready to play football, and he exuded such confidence and love for the game that you couldn't help but respect that and get ready to play. Basically, he turned a lot of teenage boys into you know, great young men, and everyone still respects and admires him for that.
I can recall as a 7th, 8th grader dreaming about playing for Jim Goda. So it was instilled in you at a young age that you wanted to be a Moorhead Spud and you wanted to play for Jim. There was a little tradition in Moorhead, and not everybody did it, but a lot of us did. And we'd get together as teammates and we'd cut our hair. We'd just do the old buzz job. And Coach probably doesn't remember this act.
One of them even had left an M on his head. He had an M on both sides, and he's very successful today.
Well, when he was done, he had carved an M in the side of my head. So of course, when we dumped off our hair on Jim's doorstep, a massive bag of it, Jimmy said, "Let me look at your heads." And he looked at mine and he goes, just shook his head and laughed. how he can have such an influence on the rest of your life, it was in itself a lesson for any of us in terms of whether we managed, whether we led in any capacity in our lives. You remember those principles. You worked hard, you worked together as a team. It was all about the goals you set and what you did to achieve them.
I've got a lot to be thankful for. I had a wonderful wife. I had a chance to work with outstanding young men that were, well, a real joy for me.